There has to be some common sense.
Yes, sir. They have the car stopped at 10th and Ranch Microbizer.
We still don't know who pulled the trigger. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Police Off the Cuff, Real Crime Stories. I'm your host, Bill Cannon, retired 27-year veteran of the NYPD, retired as a detective sergeant out of Manhattan North Homicide Squad. And with me tonight is retired NYPD detective and straight out of Brooklyn, Phil Grimaldi. How you doing tonight, Phil?
I'm doing pretty good, Billy. How about you?
Doing good. We have a very special guest tonight, and she sort of got in contact with me via email. She sent me a video of the route that Kiely Rodni must have taken towards the reservoir. And I'd like to welcome to the show Verna Kooy. Verna, how you doing tonight?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on.
Welcome.
Well, yeah, we always like to have people that are from the area. I mean, we're so far from California, you know, we call that the left coast. I'm glad you like that. Not everyone does, you know. So Verna, I like to just let people know a little bit about you. Obviously, your handle is mother of 7. So you're the mother of 7 children, which is one hell of an accomplishment.
It is. It takes up a lot of time.
Oh, sure. I was one of 8 kids. I told you I was the 3rd oldest of 8 kids, and that was some life my parents took on, you know.
Yeah, I've got 6 boys and 1 girl, and they're really far apart in age. So.
Wow. Hey, congratulations.
Lots of, different ages there.
Verna, you know, as we, covering this case, we covered it from the beginning, and it's such a tragic case. And, people, there's so many rumors and innuendos and just out and out theories, like, conspiracy theories on the internet. And from Phil and I's perspective, being professional investigators, and us also, but realizing our boots weren't on the ground, but observing this from afar and the facts and the circumstances, we see this more as potentially a vehicle accident and a horrible, horrible tragedy. But when you raise some of the reasons, you think some of the crowd, they think it's outrageous, like that. How many 16-year-olds are good drivers of a vehicle? Not too many, right? I didn't even drive when I was 16, but as soon as I did get my license, I wasn't a good driver. I thought I was Mario Andretti. I hope people get that reference. So am I too old? But,
that's a good point, Billy. But I'm just curious. I want to throw this out there. Verna, how old do you have to be to drive in that area? Because in New York and New Jersey, you can get a permit at 16, but you're not legally licensed till you're at least 17. And that's with like a driver's education program.
You can get your permit at 15 and a half, drive at 16, but you can't have anybody under, I believe it's 21. It might be 18 in your car with you.
Okay.
Until you turn 18. So
that's interesting.
And the other thing that I found a little bit crazy is that many people in the chat, many people across the internet were so shocked that she drinks. Like, are you kidding me? Like that 16-year-olds and 17-year-olds and 18-year-olds that they drink and use drugs? That was shocking to anyone? I mean, how is that shocking? I was drinking when I was 15 and 16 years old, back in the Stone Age, We had big stone mugs, that
Did you get your liquor out of a still, Bill? Did you get it out of a still?
Yeah, no, but I'm just saying that's some of the things, some of the questions we raised that,
sure,
she could have been intoxicated, but people are like, oh no, that's impossible. How could she have driven the car? And then Phil raised the thing. He said he knew someone that drove 2 hours home when they were drunk and then passed out and realized the next day they had 2 flat tires, So it's not unusual, but we're just raising these points because people are so, oh my God, shocked at some of the questions we raised. oh, how could she have possibly not seen the water? Well, you're going to show us how, you know?
Exactly. And that's why I made the video, because from Google Maps, it looks like it's flat land and everybody's thinking, why would she just drive right into that water? And, you know, I really needed to show everybody why.
You know, Verna, I wanted to ask you a question about the area where the party was. Now, before we went on the air, you said you were familiar with it. Now, the reason I'm going to bring it up is because a lot of the investigation is going to focus on other people that were at the party. They're going to be questioned in regard to whether or not anyone saw Kiely get into the vehicle and drive away. So could you just possibly describe it to us? Is there a parking lot? Is there lighting? What is that area like where the party was, if you know?
Totally nothing. So
Okay.
it's a giant area, flat area that's clear of trees, but it's surrounded by trees. It's huge. It could fit hundreds of cars and people. No electricity, no trash cans. You're not supposed to camp in that area. You can't see it from anywhere, from the campground or the road even, you know, so it's way out of the way. You could blast your music loud and probably would barely hear it at the campground. So.
Let me ask you this. Would people that go there, let's say to have a party like this, would they use the headlights of cars for lighting, or would they just hang out there in the dark?
Yeah, there's a no burn order up there, but I saw evidence of fires. So, I mean, I would say headlights for sure, yeah.
Okay. So it's
Maybe.
possible then for the investigators to question people and come up with information from those people that whether or not someone saw her leave the party or, you know, got into a car and drove and stuff like that. You think that would be a logical way to question the people that were there?
Oh, yeah, you could probably, other people could recognize. I'm sure there was enough light,
Okay.
you know, with the headlights and stuff for sure.
All right.
Anything
Anything else about go ahead. One last thing. Anything else about the area that would be of note in the campground area? You said that there's not really a parking lot. There's not real lighting. Is there anything else that you could tell us about that shine light on the area where the party was?
There's no cameras, my guess, but there's no cameras. A ranger, there isn't. You know, I've camped there for a week before without anybody coming by and, you know, collecting our fees or whatever. One of the campgrounds has a host, but it's far away and you can't really see anybody leaving the party from that campground. So, you know, and it's surrounded by trees.
Okay.
So, and it's on top of a hill. So it's kind of isolated almost.
Okay. So a desolated area. No residential area, residential homes near the area? Okay.
Nowhere near it, no.
All right, good. So we got a good picture of what the party area was like.
You know, Verna, what I wanted to ask you also, because the police have offered up that they've interviewed 300 to 400 juveniles, 300 to 400 juveniles in response to this case. I would imagine, knowing how these investigations go, that they have the answers they need. I believe they have the people that witnessed Kiely get into her car and take off. I believe they know that. Now, because the public is freaking out and making up stuff and just totally losing it, you know? Now, you told me before we went on the air also, this area, and this is a two-part question, the people are largely affluent, educated people. Therefore, their children are probably getting good advice from their parents. So don't talk to the police. Don't give up your videos. Don't give up your pictures. And so the cooperation level from these kids, none of who drink, I imagine. You know, there was 300 of them there, but none of them drink or do drugs. But none of them saw anything either. But give me your point of view in regards to the, you know, the demeanor and the where the kids are, where they're coming from, their parents, the kids that would have attended this party.
I mean, I'm sure they probably all have lawyer representation, you know. But I mean, even my kid, with as big as it's been on the news, I would have asked if they'd seen anything. If they didn't see anything, you know, the way I've seen people attack some of the people that have come forward, I would have told them to keep quiet. You know, if you didn't see anything, why put yourself out there to be attacked, you know?
So yeah, in California, it is if you see something, don't say something.
You,
Yep.
you know what? In this situation, though, as a parent, I can understand the gentle nature of walking through this minefield with kids because if there's other things that maybe illegal underage drinking or illegal narcotics use or something, so I can understand parents and possibly enlisting the help of an attorney to navigate through this. But I think the police stressed from the beginning that they weren't doing a narcotics investigation. They weren't doing underage drinking investigation. They were conducting a missing persons investigation. So I think that was really paramount that, information. I think you made a great statement though, Verna, when you said, if my kids didn't see anything, I would be reluctant to let them get involved. And if they did, obviously you'd want to maybe supply that information to the police. But it's understandable though in this world, especially with social media, if somebody comes forward and gives information and people don't like the information or they take it as some type of an insult, where you could be like, you can be really lambasted on social media. So I do get that.
Rosemary J, there were people parked next to her and saw her. Police said they didn't want their names released. That's great of the police, but that gives my whole dissertation some meaning. There is that someone saw her get in the car, someone saw her drive away. So the whole big conspiracy theory about, the one that I find the most outrageous, and I'm not putting anyone down, but I find this one to be outrageous, that the reason that the police didn't find her car was because it wasn't there when they searched there. I find that to be so outrageous as to be like, are you kidding me? Are you really kidding me? Do you actually believe that? And there are people that do believe that. There's people that have said that. And then Phil and I last night spent almost our entire show giving scientific evidence as to why that wasn't true.
That's completely ridiculous. Go ahead, Verna.
Oh, I'm just saying, as someone who's never been in law enforcement, there's people that have come forward and they're not releasing names. That's awesome. That's what they promised to do. So there's more people out there that's seen her, of course. But the other thing is, even as someone not in law enforcement, know nothing about crime scenes, anything, the minute they said her phone last being half on water, half on land, it was quite obvious she was probably in the water right there,
Yeah.
Just made sense.
Yeah, that everything led right to that location, obviously. But I just want to expand a little on a point that Bill just made. It was kind of absurd to us from the beginning that she could be at this party with 200 to 300 people. I think they said they've identified as much as 400 people, but 200 to 300 people. She didn't go there and sit in a corner by herself. Whatever she was doing, kids are partying, like you said, there might have been some type of a bonfire or something. They were drinking, whatever they were doing. She was not alone the whole period of time. And we said that from the beginning, somebody had her see her get up and leave. And I think that statement, I hope it is true that they do have that person or person's information and statement. So that's really going to be helpful to putting the whole thing together as far as, all the conspiracy theories. Somebody forced her into a car or whatever. And we really put to sleep the conspiracy theory that the vehicle wasn't there when they searched it. It's really absurd to even, just entertain that is completely absurd.
And another thing is where she turned, goes towards the lake. The kids probably know goes towards the lake. So they've seen a car take the wrong way, but they wouldn't have known that she didn't intentionally go there to get some alone time with her boyfriend or something, So why would anybody be concerned that she turned that direction,
Yes, absolutely.
Oh,
Absolutely.
Verna, there's no evidence that, and again, this is why it's so important that the results of interviews become made public, that there was no evidence that she was in the car with anyone else but herself. Could someone have been in the car earlier and then she said, I got to leave, I got to go. She had texted her mom at 12:30 and I got to get going. And then that's where, pardon the expression, the rubber hits the road, and where the fateful mistake was made.
But you're seeing a car turn that direction. You don't know who's in it always, The people behind her wouldn't have had a second thought, you know.
Yeah, but you're making a really great point, Verna. The fact that you're saying that when she turned in that direction, it shouldn't have been alarming to anyone, because what you said, maybe she wanted, her and her boyfriend wanted to go down by the water for a romantic moment or something, and you know, just maybe to get away from the party a little bit. So it wouldn't be alarming if someone saw her go in that direction. I think that's the point you're trying to make.
Yeah, it's scary, you know, but it goes over a slight rise. I don't know if you can tell in the video, but it does go over a slight rise. So everybody leaving, going the other way, wouldn't have been able to see her for very long. So.
You know, Verna, why do you, I mean, there's still people in the chat where someone just said this was no missing person or accident, this was a homicide. Why do you think people are still saying that? And of course, look, we praise the hell out of Adventures with Purpose. I'm a huge fan of theirs already. I just found out about them. They're fantastic. They're unbelievable. I can't say enough about them. You know, we said it day one, they do God's work. But in the same vein, we don't want to put down the police because they don't have that level of talent in scuba diving and underwater searches. They're not as good. Everyone says the police captain admitted that. Captain Sam Brown said we're not as good as they are. We admit that. And we're happy that they helped us. But then people also got upset over the fact that once Adventures with Purpose recovered the car and recovered the remains, that now the police took over. That's the job of the police. If this ever had to go to court or anyone has to testify, the police take the bull by the horns. And people have to understand that. I mean, Adventures with Purpose, if this ever became what everyone is saying, became a criminal case, they would have to get involved too. But the police have to take control of it because this is evidence, the vehicle's evidence, you know, all the things in the car are evidence. If they ever recovered the phone, which we don't know, no one knows that, do they? No one knows whether that cell phone was ever recovered. They didn't release that.
Probably on purpose.
Yes, I believe so. I believe so.
My guess is going to be that it's going to be within the vehicle. I would almost certainly bet that that's what's going to be, based on the fact that they didn't say publicly that the cell phone hasn't been found. So I'm leaning towards that. But Billy, you brought up a point about somebody saying this is not a DUI investigation or they're calling it a homicide. Everybody's entitled to their opinion. And I think that you and I both being professionals with almost 50 years of law enforcement experience, we're not just shooting from the hip saying that we think it's an accident investigation because of everything that we're seeing and everything that was released to the public. So again, you're not offending me by saying you think it's a homicide investigation in your opinion. But if you say it, I would like to see, you know, maybe you want to put it in the chat, the reason why you think it's a homicide investigation. We haven't seen anything so far that indicates to us that it looks like a homicide or it's suspicious of foul play or anything like that. And I believe if you watch the press conferences and you see the updates that come through on the media, no one in law enforcement has that type of a posture. They're not, you know, saying that there's somebody out there that they want to speak to, a person of interest, a suspect, anything like that. So again, everybody's entitled to their opinion. And I don't mind somebody challenging what I'm saying, but challenge it with some fact or give me some reason why you would make a statement like that.
You know, I'd also like to let people know that the term homicide means death caused by another.
Right.
All right. That's what it means. And the homicide doesn't have to be criminal. There are ways a homicide can be committed and it's not criminal. But I don't want to get into that with this case. I'll get more confusing here. And because I don't believe this is a homicide investigation. I believe this is a vehicle accident. If you want to stretch it and say that someone fed her alcohol or someone fed her drugs, and you want to say that it's a homicide investigation because of that, that's a huge stretch. And I don't know if they can ever prove that. I mean, usually people that drink under their own volition.
Right. There'd have to be intent, Bill. And like you just said, if she willingly took alcohol, willingly ingested a narcotic, you know, and then later crashes and dies, that's a real stretch. But one quick point about Adventures with Purpose. They're not a law enforcement agency. So they are volunteers. So they enlisted their help into this investigation. The police welcomed them in. And so because they're not a law enforcement agency, the minute that they recover something and it's criminal of nature, they have to hands off, you know, they hand it over to law enforcement. So I just want to make that point real clear.
Don't they become witnesses and have to testify if it was?
Yes, they
a
would.
reason
Absolutely.
to-
Absolutely.
Yeah, if this became or even in a civil case, say this became a civil case some way, you know, because everyone sues everyone these days, you know, they might have to testify over that too, just a civil case. You know, Verna, I'm going to pull up your video right now.
Let's
This
get
is
to the videotape.
the moment we've all been waiting for. Let me enlarge it a little bit. And
So there's
Verna,
only one road.
you can
Sorry.
you can narrate this.
Okay, so there's only one road. So I started a little bit behind the sanctuary so you can see all of the sanctuary. So this road does go around to 89. It's like a dirt back road, but it gets really, really bad. So I don't know that a car would even make it if it went the back way. So right here on the right is where the sanctuary starts, and it's huge. So it's got 3 of these.
When
open areas.
you say sanctuary, what do you mean? Is that what that was where the party was?
Yeah, the nickname. It's a nickname because it's surrounded by trees. It's quiet. It's calm. I don't know,
Okay.
maybe. So this is a
See,
huge area.
us uncool homicide investigators from New York City don't know that California lingo.
Speak for yourself, Bill.
So it was nice and clean, but I did see a lot of markers still left from, I don't know, police, searchers, whatever, but there were still quite a few markers around there.
Verna, a question about the roadway. Is it sandy? Is it looks like dirt, obviously, but is it kind of sandy or is it just like a clay dirt?
It's super hard with like soft sand over it. So it doesn't leave tracks much, but it is kind of slippery.
Okay.
And it's got big ruts, and it's got like tree limbs, you know, stuff like that in the road, rocks.
So it's not like a paved road. It's just basically natural and over time, I guess it got, okay. The reason I'm asking to see if a vehicle would get stuck in that roadway or anything like that.
No, but it would bottom out if you had a small car.
Okay.
Verna, I'd just like to say one other thing. This road is pretty damn narrow.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, there's not a hell of a lot of, I don't think 2 cars could pass each other on that road, right?
No, you'd have to pull over ahead of time. And it goes, it's going downhill. From here, we're going downhill.
Okay.
It's hard to see, but
which
you see all
could unintentionally increase your speed.
Yeah.
Especially if you were drinking.
Well, it's such a different story at night. But if you look to the right and left there, it's all sagebrush. So you can't really go off-roading or you're going to mess up your car. So it's got holes from animals and, you know, rocks and stuff like that. So if you go off-roading, it's 1, going to leave a lot of tracks, and 2, very difficult. So that's why you stay on the road. But if you were super out of it and you went off the road a little bit, you're able to get back on pretty easy. It's not like you're going to get stuck.
Now, let me ask you this. We're going a little bit of a slope downward. This is towards the body of water, correct?
Yeah. So it's going down to where you turn on to, you know, how to get here.
Okay.
So,
and from where you are now, you can't see the body of water, correct?
Nope, not at all. Or the campground or town or any lights.
Because that's one of the questions that's been in the chat almost every time we've done a show on this is, oh, how could she not have seen it? How could she not have seen it? So I guess if you take darkness and then it's not really visible until I guess you get up close to the area, the body of water. So I guess that kind of answers that question.
And then at nighttime, when you're driving this, you can literally just see the closest sagebrush and trees next to you. Nothing else. It is pitch black. No city lights, you know, the moon, we have stars, but nothing Nothing electric, nothing to give you any kind of, there's no signs, no markers, no reflectors. So that's the first glimpse of the lake.
Okay. Yeah, I
And
guess that was
Verna,
off to the
let me
right
ask
a
you
little bit.
something. How many years have you been driving a car?
A lot. Probably 25,
All right,
30.
25
Yeah.
years. So you've been driving a car for 25 years. How many years or a year or months has this 16-year-old girl, Kiely Rodni, been driving the car? Maybe a couple
I
of
think in less
months?
than a year. Yeah.
Yeah,
I don't
well,
know
yeah,
how close she
because,
was to
I mean,
17.
so wouldn't you think to drive on a road like this, and especially at night, you would need to be an experienced driver?
Oh, yeah. Well, you're not factoring in the way the road is. So your concentration's directly on that road. So you don't hit a giant rock that's sticking up or bottom out or anything like that, too. And, you know, she might have been driving snowmobile, stuff like that around there, but this isn't the closest lake to her house. Well, I don't know that she'd be here all the time. You know what I mean? It's kind of a little
Yeah.
bit farther away than some of the other ones.
But you're making a really great point that you're going to be at night. Now it's dark. You're going to be looking right in front of the car. You're not going to be looking ahead.
Mhm.
You're going to try to see that you don't want to hit anything. And I guess that's a great point that would maybe
So this
obstruct
is-
you seeing the body of water before you get to it.
Yeah, so this is the first turn. So if you take a left, you're going to go to the paved road, towards the paved road in the campground in town. You take a right, it goes towards the lake.
Okay.
And honestly, when I went there the first time, I mean, the second time I was there, I took the wrong way. Sober.
So,
Just easy
and
to-
that's during the
to not be able
daytime
to tell
too.
what direction you are. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really easy.
Very
So
interesting.
this road gets a little wider here.
I just want to bring this up from the chat. Brian Dodd, she knew that area and drove that area for years. How'd she drive it for years? She didn't have a license for a year. She just got a license. How did she
And
drive it for years?
It's not near the lake, and it's not where you camp, where the party was. So, I mean, unless she went to that party very often, and there was a party very often, there's no reason to be in the area of the sanctuary. It's not.
Or unless she drove in a car with someone else, if that's what he's referring to. But she didn't
Yeah.
have a license for probably more like 6 months, right?
Yeah, and it's a party spot. It's not like a camp area. You can't camp there or anything. So I don't see why anybody would be going there regularly. But
Don't forget,
here,
there could have also been the radio playing loud. There could have been a possible text message or something on the phone as a distraction when she got to that fork in the road. So there's so many
so
things.
if
And
you
then
pause
it's
it here
dark.
real quick.
God.
So back there, you could take a right and it goes around to the other side of the lake. I mean, around to the lake, to the shore, but it's quite a ways and it's very rutted. And then if you go kind of to the left, kind of straight, this is the road that goes down to the water, but you're on a hill. And I know on Google Maps, it looks like it's not a hill, but it is pretty high all over the whole area because the water's receded a lot. It's a reservoir. And here on the left, there's a couple like burn piles and stuff where people have had, I don't know, campfires, and you're not supposed to camp, but you know. But this is the only kind of open beach area there is, even though it's not really on the beach. But. So when you're driving at night, your headlights go above that lake. And there's no trees or scrub brush or anything on the edges to even kind of show you where the road is. You know, it just looks like the road keeps going.
So when you were driving this route at night, at what point could you see the reservoir?
Never.
So you would
Even
be
when
right
I was
upon the
standing-
reservoir, and
even
you
when
didn't-
I was standing right next to it, I could not see it with a flashlight. Yeah,
Wow.
You were right upon it
I went a few days ago and there was no moon out, but it was still kind of the sun was still setting, but I could not see it at all.
It blended right in with the terrain, I guess.
Just black, and
Very
then you see the
interesting.
hills in the background. It looks like the road just keeps going to there. You know.
See, now that's a very, very important point because most of the people in the chat that disagree with, you know, whether or not she went in there by accident or intentionally or whatever, that's one of the things they bring. Oh, how could she not have seen the water? You know, what did she drive right into it? So the point you're making is very, very important.
Yeah, I mean, and it has to do with terrain too.
You know, Lobo says she wasn't out there all by herself, though. There was supposedly a mass exodus of cars that she could follow out. Why would she go the wrong way? Well, because she was
We
drunk.
don't know. We don't know that either.
That's one of the ways.
And I have something to say about that.
Yeah, we don't know if there was other cars that she was following out too. I mean, it was kind of on the early side that we think that she left around 12:30, somewhere around there. The pinging of the phone was around 12:33. So we really don't know. I mean, that sounds kind of early for Friday night for kids to be wrapping up a party, you know? I mean, I could be wrong. Maybe there was other people even at that time. And again, like Verna said earlier, it wouldn't be that unusual for a car to, you know, veer off to the right towards the reservoir because, you know, maybe they're just going to go down there and make a campfire. Like we saw that there were some spots that there were campfires there, or just wanted to drive down and be alone down there. So it wasn't alarming that she made the right turn, you know?
That, and I do have to say why I don't really believe it is because, I don't know, it's a rumor, but the rumor is supposed to have come from someone at the campground. And the campground cannot see the road or the party site or the lake from where it's at. So if there was a mass exodus of people leaving at either of the campgrounds, they couldn't have seen it. I mean,
Jonathan
you can hear
Anderson,
probably far off music, but you can't see headlights, nothing.
Really? Okay.
I just want to read this from the chat. Jonathan Anderson, she would have realized she was in the water before the car was floating.
See,
you
now,
know, if you watched any of Adventures with Purpose's videos, the window to get the hell out of the car, I think, is between 30 and 45 seconds. And the car that they demonstrated getting out of had the old wind-up windows. I don't know why they did that, because almost no car has that now. So what happens once water hits electricity? Does the electricity immediately not work? Does the electric doors and windows immediately not work? I don't know the answer to that. Does anyone know the answer to that?
You know
I'm
what?
sure there is.
Yeah, there is an answer to that. I mean, whether or not the water overtakes the whole car has probably got something to do with it. I would think the little bit I know about electricity, when you try to activate the window, that's when it would probably short out if there was water by the switch or whatever. But before we even get to that, she could have fallen asleep. She could have been unconscious from lack of sleep or from drinking too much or possibly narcotic use. So again, he's saying she would have known she was in the water before the car began floating. And again, Billy, you brought up the point. The car's not going to stay afloat that long. The car, if it goes in at a good thrust, it's going to probably tilt forward, as we explained in previous episodes that we did, and it probably would turn over. Again, super disorienting anybody inside that vehicle, because if you're upside down, you know, up is down and down is up. And if you had a couple of drinks or you just even sober, it's going to be disorienting. So I don't think that that had a real strong point, that last comment.
Verna, I'm going to go back to the video. You can continue.
Okay. So this is as far as your car can go. And as you can see, you can't really tell the road ends. It's not like there's a barrier. And do you see the dust flying there?
Yes.
So at night, that dust hits your headlights and obscures anything in front of you also, because the headlights are bounce off that.
You know, I believe I saw when I watched this before that when you go to the water's edge, the depth drops off rather quickly.
Yeah, it does have drop-offs. Yep. The whole place does.
So, you know, I think her car was only 50 feet out or something, right? But that was deep enough to be 14 feet. Yeah. And when the reservoir was at its highest, it was 4 feet higher. So it could have been 18 feet deep, well over the.
If there's an early drop off, you could get into that water. I mean, we have to take into consideration if she was on a downslope, so the car could have possibly sped up. Now, whether she was conscious, unconscious, or whether she was just not aware of how fast she was going, the car thrusts into the water. And if it is deep, it's going to do exactly what I said. And when I'm saying deep, you could go like 6-8 feet of water and it's already going to start lurching forward because the weight of the engine is going to be pulling it down. And again, maybe it floated out to, they said, about 50 feet from the shoreline. Correct, Bill?
You can see here where the water ends.
Right. You know, I was just going to say, you can actually see here the drop off.
So it's so bumpy because I'm like sliding as I'm walking down the hill. It's a pretty steep slope.
And is that the little memorial to her?
Yeah, that's her memorial, and you can see the tracks right there on the left. That's one of the tire prints where they pulled her out.
Sure.
But you can see where it
one of
kinda
the
goes off.
things a lot of people were harping upon also was why there were no tire tracks from her vehicle going into the water. And I think that could be easily explained. Other cars driving over it, and as you saw, the wind chucking up the dust and the dirt there, and that could remove the tire treads. And again, rain. I'm sure it rained between the time
twice.
Plus other people going into the area, coming and going. I don't think that there was a rapid search at this location. It probably happened within a day or two. So again, there was people that, go through the area. So again, those tracks could have been all the things you said, Bill, and plus, other vehicles or other, people using boating equipment. It could have been, just covered over. There is a lot of people that launch boats into there, correct?
Yeah, and you can launch it from anywhere. So I'm going to have you pause it when it does when you go up to see my car so you can see the angle.
Okay.
It's pretty dramatic. So
see, now that is
my
a big,
car, right there.
That's a big drop off right there that you're showing.
Yeah, so if you want to go back just a bit and pause it, kind of shows where my car is. Kind of shows the whole angle, but yeah, it's pretty steep. That was the whole point of the video, is to be able to show people how steep it was.
Okay.
So it's when she turns the camera around, I think, Bill.
Yeah, and you'll see my car up there at the top, just on the left. I think
you're going too far back.
Too far back.
Yeah, it's right after the memorial.
Yeah.
Yeah, from here now.
I'll try to tell you to stop.
Go ahead.
Almost. Okay, stop. Right there. Can you see my car up there?
Yeah.
Back.
I saw your car up there.
Just a little bit back. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, so my car is right there on the left. All right, that's good. Yeah, right there.
Yeah, I see it up there. There you go.
Okay.
So you see how steep that is.
Wow.
That looks to me at least like, I don't know what, like a 20-foot drop right there, maybe more. And if you're in a vehicle, that's going to make you go even faster towards the water.
And the nature of the dirt is it's super hard packed mud from being, the bottom of the water there, because that's usually underwater, part of the time underwater. And then it's got loose sand over the top, but not very much. So it's not. It's smooth, and slippery. So if she started coming over that hill, even if she put on her brakes, I don't know that she could stop, and she definitely couldn't reverse or turn around because you're sideways.
Sure.
Literally sideways. So
that would also help the car to lurch forward once it got into the water. The fact that it's already on an angle, it's sloping down, and once it hits the water, again, the point that we've made on 2 or 3 episodes already, that the weight of the vehicle would take it forward, and that's probably how it got upside down into the water.
Yeah. So that little divot you see right there is, I don't know if it was from her car when they pulled it out, because everybody had to be at top where my car is. But that's the only thing left over from them pulling her out, where it dug into the sand there.
Yeah, that could have been when they were towing the car and it caught some of it. Just displaced it, yeah.
But I could see no tracks from all of those cars that were there before, And right here's actually where that crime scene tape I saw in the video was.
Now, in that picture right there, that across the water there, is that any kind of a residential area across, or is that just
there's a couple houses, but they're in the trees. But no, it's not a residential area.
But there is homes there?
Yeah, I saw two houses.
Okay. The reason I'm asking is because if she was trying to scream for help or blow the horn or anything like that, do you think it's possible someone could have heard it?
No, that is so far away.
Okay.
It's so far away. I'm horrible with measurements, but yeah, it's No one could have hurt her.
Folks, this is Police Off the Cuff Real Crime Stories. If you're not subscribed to us, please go on our YouTube, hit that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, and ring that bell. If you like real crime stories from a police perspective, then we're your show. We're two retired NYPD, one detective sergeant with over 50 years police experience. We also have a Patreon. If you want to support us financially, we have 3 different levels on our Patreon. And we have a YouTube channel memberships, and you can see the folks in the green font. They're members of our YouTube channel, and we have 5 different levels to that. You know, we try to give evidence-based information on this show. And, you know, there's a lot, and I respect everyone's opinion. I really do. But there's some things that you just have to point out as outrageous. You know, there's no other way to say it. You know, there's some content creators that put out stuff that is just beyond believable, meaning it's unbelievable. It's not believable, you know? And as I said, we try to use evidence-based and science to prove or disprove. And are we ever wrong? You bet. You bet we're wrong. We're not always right, but you know something? We use our experience. We use what's called hypothesizing, theorizing, that type of thing, and investigative techniques that we learned during a long police career.
You know, Billy, I just want to address one of the comments in the chat. Marilyn Moneta says, how would she have gotten out of the seatbelt? I think that there's probably several scenarios how she would have gotten out of the seatbelt. One, right off the bat, if she realizes she's in the water, the car is starting to fill up with water. If the car is already lurching forward, she's going to take the seatbelt off to try to maneuver to get out of the vehicle. Possibly if the seatbelt was never on, that's another scenario. And the third scenario would be if she, you know, just slipped out of it from being in the water for an extended period of time, obviously unconscious and DOA. And, you know, her body could have just, because of the gases in the body, tried to float to the top. So it could have slipped out of the seatbelt as well. So there's several scenarios how she could have gotten out of that seatbelt. That's not like a red flag in my mind with regard to the fact that when she was found that they said she was in the back of the vehicle, her body probably floated back that way. And again, I mentioned 3 scenarios, maybe there's more, but that's not a big indicator of foul play to me at this point.
No, I mean, we spoke about that last night also, and the potential also that say there was an air pocket back there and she purposely went to the back of the car so she could breathe. That's a possibility also, you know. But it is a difficult thing to slide out of a seatbelt, as was shown by Adventures with Purpose. It's just you become so disoriented, especially when the vehicle flips over.
Of course.
The people just are so disoriented, they don't know what the hell to do. And that's why, you know, everyone's ordering that little tool that shatters the window. I mean, I would imagine everyone that watches. I tried to order one the other day. They're sold out. And I was like, oh, I got to get one of those, you know?
Bill,
now every time you hear a body of water, you're paranoid about that, right?
But for a reference to being upside down in the water, there's a movie called An Officer and a Gentleman where they go through training, and it's training to be a pilot, and they lurch them into the water on this conveyor, and they're upside down. And a lot of the people that were trying to go through this training you know, freaked out and couldn't get out, and they would have divers standing close by to pull them out of the water if they began to drown. So if anybody wants to take a look through that movie, and you could look at that part, and you'll understand that it's dark, number one, there's no light, you're underwater, or the vehicle is filling up with water, and you're upside down or almost upside down. So you take those components, you add possibly being intoxicated, and you could see panic setting in like that.
Schmitty, thank you for the $5 super chat. Was our car's hood facing shore or facing water? I'm thinking speed plus weight of engine. First tried to correct before going in, maybe a moot point. Phil, you want to answer that?
Well, I mean, listen, it's possible. I mean, it's actually a good point, because perhaps when she was speeding towards the water, she could have seen it in the last second and tried to turn away for it. Maybe the car went sideways into the water. I don't really know the answer to that question, but I do believe that it was definitely upside down when they located the vehicle. And again, we don't know the condition where the vehicle was in the water, if it's actually flat or if it's on a slope. So, but that is a good point. It's possible that she could have saw it at the last second, but there's a lot of variables here. She may have seen it, couldn't, maneuver away from it, or she could have been, not paying attention. She could have been disoriented with the darkness. There's several scenarios, but that is a good point.
And I do have to say that open area, there's another area like that, and it's right before the main road. So she very well could have been speeding up, thinking she was at that point where she was about to get on the paved road. So,
Verna, when you illustrated where your car was and looking up in the hill, that's a nasty hill.
Yeah.
And if you don't, at nighttime, my God, I could see you almost going airborne if you were going too fast down that hill.
Yeah. And, I didn't put my seatbelt on. I shouldn't be telling you guys this, but you don't think about it until you get on pavement a lot of times. You're concentrating on the road and not hitting, things that are on the road and not bottoming out in your car and,
Critter Watcher, I love that name. I believe accident, but I'm willing to change that as more info becomes available from investigation. But AWP did say something about expecting interesting other findings, so I'm staying tuned. Critter Watcher, we discussed that. They may have other information that they were asked not to release to the public by the police. That doesn't mean it incriminates or it makes this criminal. It just means they know other things, And look, anyone in the chat, anyone following this case can believe whatever they want. I'm not telling you what to believe. I'm just presenting the evidence and what the evidence means to me and what it means to an educated investigator.
Yeah, something else, Billy, Adventures with Purpose, they're expert in using sonar and diving and stuff like that. They're not experienced investigators. So something that might seem suspicious to them might not be suspicious to investigators like us, because there might be a perfectly logical reason, like perhaps the fact that her body was found towards the back of the vehicle. I think that they didn't think that that was so suspicious because of the same reasons that we felt that, if the vehicle, if there was an air bubble, the body, person would try to get out that way. And that's where that would be their escape route. So that's where their body would probably remain. But again, maybe there was something in the car that was suspicious, and the case could take a turn. But there are, things that sometimes do look suspicious, but they're very explainable, so to speak.
Teresita Hills, would law enforcement be privy to the autopsy results up to this point? For example, water in the lungs. Yes, they would be. I believe that the medical examiner would have told them. And we discussed it last night. Water in the lungs means that you were alive when you went into the water and the cause of your death was drowning. That's a pathologist will tell that. That's one of the first things they will tell you. And when people learn that, a lot of people learned that last night, or from Duty Ron, had Ed Wallace, who's a crime scene expert. He covered that also, said, water in the lungs means you took a breath, which means you were alive. And that disproves a lot of these conspiracy theories, like, oh, she was dead and they threw her in the car and someone else dumped the car in the water, So science will disprove a lot of the conspiracy and a lot of the gossip and a lot of the rumors that is being spread on social media.
Absolutely. And I did see that segment of Duty Ron's show, which Duty Ron, we owe him a lot of thanks. He's a great friend of ours. Him and Ed Wallace do a great job. And that segment that he did, he talked about the respiratory system being functional when you go into the water. So you take in the water into the lungs. And if you're already dead or you're already unconscious, maybe not dead, but you're unconscious, that your body's not able to take in the water. So when they find the body, there won't be water in the lungs. It's really a simple explanation as to whether the person was alive or dead before they went into the water.
So I have a question, guys. Do you have any idea that what hitting the water would feel like? I mean, I've heard that if you hit the water, you just stop like hitting concrete or a wall. Do you guys have any idea if it's just a sudden stop or?
Bill, you want me to answer that?
Go ahead. Yeah, but I would just say, it is like hitting, it depends what speed.
Okay.
But it is like hitting a brick wall, I mean, you ever dive off a high board and belly flop? It's not, and that's not even, that's a low high board. So just imagine speed and weight, and it is like hitting a brick wall. Yeah.
Bill, I'm going to just give a synopsis, a scenario of when we get involved in a shooting in the NYPD. You have to go immediately, like the next day when you're back on duty. You have to go to the police academy, and you go to the ballistics section, and they fire your gun into a tank of water in an angle, and the bullet literally travels about 4, 5, 6 feet and just stops. The reason is the water is so dense, the bullet is traveling through the water at a high rate of speed, but it immediately slows down. So I think the answer to that question would be yes, that it would be like pretty sudden of a stop. I don't think it would be immediate, like 100%, but you'd probably get into the water and come to a very abrupt stop. Yes.
Phil, that's a great picture. And something, no one would ever think, if you're not in police work, that, how do cops get the bullet that they test in a gun out of the tank? They actually fire it into a water tank. They have a stick with a piece of gum on the end of it.
Yeah,
high tech, and it's sort of funny. It was like, that's how you get the bullet out? Well, that stick with the gum?
And the tank is not that big. I think it's actually 6 foot long, and it's maybe 4 feet wide and maybe 4 feet high. But they fire the gun into the tank at an angle, and it's just something to see. It's really wild because there's like a splash. There's like a cone on the end of the tank where they stick the gun in, and then you see the big splash, and you see the bullet just all of a sudden stopping, and it just floats down to the bottom. It's really, I guess it's physics at work because of the density of the water up against the velocity of the bullet, but it brings it, and the bullet is not damaged. That's the thing. The bullet is whole. It doesn't get damaged because it's only hitting water. And they take the stick out, like Bill said, a piece of gum or clay or something on the end of it, and they stab the bullet, they bring it up, and then they compare it to the ballistics that they're going to compare it to. And what they also do is, I believe they fired the gun twice, and they keep one record. They keep one on record that if there's ever, like, let's say your gun is lost or stolen and it gets used in a crime, they have a copy of the bullet. So they'll use one for evidence, and they keep one on record. That's how they do it in the NYPD anyhow.
Tammy Lynn 11, do we know if her axle was broken or if her car was in neutral as it was rolling backward? The wheels were rolling too. Tammy Lynn, one of the things that we learned last night, and I actually should have checked this, is that some of those Hondas, and specifically her year 2013, have a black box, much like an airplane has. And it'll tell the investigator the speed the car was going, whether the car was in drive, neutral, reverse, or whatever. All of that information is stored in the black box. And the FBI is taking possession of that car, taking it to a facility where they can forensically go through it. So the science will tell us that. PR Trinellan, is that PR Trinellan? Critical about people jumping to conclusions of foul play, but aren't some of you doing same by insisting it was an accident? No, we're not. We're using science. We're using science to jump to the conclusion, as you say. It's not jumping to a conclusion. As if the science of having water in your lungs says you were alive before you went into the water. Is that jumping to a conclusion? No, that's science.
Bill, I have to expand on that. Go ahead, Verna.
The whole reason of asking about hitting the water was she probably more than likely hit her head or chest or who knows what else, hitting it that hard, So
that's actually a very good point. Yeah, she could have hit her head and been unconscious, and autopsy will show that. But with regard to that last comment, we're not jumping to conclusions. I said this before. I addressed it last night. Enough information was released to the public. Now, we always say we don't have access to the case folder. We don't know everything that's already been investigating, what information they have, but everything that was released is how Bill and I are forming our opinions. And sometimes in the past, our opinions haven't been 100% the same. They've been a little different here and there, but generally, I mean, in this case, we've been, neck and neck on our opinion that we feel it's an accident based on all of the information that was put forward through the media. I mean, the phone pinging at the location, just, right around the time that she's not seen or heard from again, that was how they wound up searching that area. So, and again, all the other stuff that we talked about, there's probably witnesses as someone put in the chat earlier, that saw her leave. And so again, it's not conspiracy theory time, it's fact-based time that we form our opinions on this.
How many years do you guys have between your experience investigating?
Well, I did 27 years, and 16 of those 27 were in the detective bureau. And my last 10 was in homicide, Manhattan North homicide, which is one of the most elite homicide squads in the entire world. So I think I have pretty good credentials.
I did about 22 years on the police force. My first 3 years was in uniform. I went into plain clothes shortly after that. And I spent the rest of my time as an investigator, as a detective. But I, you know, even though it's only 22 years active, I still consider myself in law enforcement because I did some security things. I had a private investigation stuff, but doing this, I stay connected with it. So again, between us, I always say there's about 50 years of experience, probably more than that, based on the fact that we're still involved in, you know, we have colleagues, we stay in touch with friends that are still on the police department, and we're very interested in these types of cases. So again, we're still plugged in, so to speak. There's still blue blood in my veins, and I'm sure Billy.
So that's not jumping to conclusions then.
No, you know, and in addition, Verna, I taught college. I taught criminal justice at a college for 10.5 years. And in addition, I taught at the NYPD Police Academy. They took me off the field to teach detectives, sergeants, lieutenants, captains about identification procedures. So I think I know what I'm talking about a little bit, you know.
And I'll vouch for that.
Yeah. Phil, we got a quick commercial.
Sure. Joe Murray, attorney at law. Have you found yourself in a jam? Are you in need of legal counsel in the New York area? Do you need a victim's advocate? Well, Joe Murray is your man. He's not only an experienced trial attorney, he's also a retired 15-year member of the NYPD. He literally knows both sides of the fence. His website is jmurray-law.com. His telephone number is 646-838-1702. Or you could email Joe at jmurray-law.com. And if you would like to advertise on Police Off the Cuff Real Crime Stories, just send us an email at policeoffthecuff, the number 1 at gmail.com. That's policeoffthecuff, number 1 at gmail.com. We have a national as well as an international audience, and it might be the right thing for your business. And our rates are very reasonable.
You know, folks, I just want to say a couple of things. We're not like sitting here like we're above anybody. We try to take everyone's opinion and respect your opinion. But if we don't agree with it, we'll try to present evidence as to why we think it's not correct. But as long as as long as people are respectful, we're also respectful. And I think we should also be respectful even when people are disrespectful. We learn that. But, you know, we can't just let people say things that aren't true. And when we have evidence that proves the opposite. So that's where we're coming from. We're coming from presenting real crime stories from a police perspective. And again, if you're not subscribed to us, go on our YouTube, hit that subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, ring that bell. If you want to join our Patreon or our YouTube, we appreciate it. We have all kinds of new, I get new subscribers every day. And people always say, why didn't I know about you guys? You guys are so good. And I was like, well, that's very flattering, as Verna discovered.
Thank you. That's a nice compliment.
Yeah, I thank. We appreciate every single person that joins us. You know, Verna, this was very interesting, and I did show some of your video yesterday. But it's great to have the person on air that videotaped it and is from that area and can explain the whole scene to us.
And there's a couple more things I kind of wanted to point out is that the boat ramp where they mentioned in the beginning they were going to be looking is way around the corner by the campground. So it's nowhere near where they were. And then the silt in the water, every time it's windy, it just stirs up this giant cloud of silt that you couldn't see your hand in front of your face if you hit that, you know. You start shifting around that, so you're not going to see anything. So on top of it dropping off. So
then there's like a reason why the police could have missed finding the car. The silt could have been kicked up. The water could have been 4 feet deeper than it was. The Adventures with Purpose found it. And all of those are not excuses, but potential reasons. And the fact that they simply were not as good as
Right.
Adventures with Purpose. They just were not as good. They didn't have as good of equipment. They didn't know how to search the reservoir. Now, from what I understand, that reservoir is a man-made body of water, right?
Yeah, yeah. So it's steep. It's graduated, going up
Right.
the.
They
So
said at
all
its
of the
deepest
shoreline
point.
was steep.
Yeah, but they said at its deepest point, it's like 55 feet deep.
I believe it. It's
That,
beautiful. It's peaceful. Yeah, it's just.
Bill, I
it's
got to
just sad.
comment on one of the comments in the chat. Nathan
Go
says,
ahead.
like said, somebody gave her something and she overdosed and they covered up. It happens all the time. I think the point that we made about the water in the lungs will dispel that. If she overdosed and somebody pushed her into the water, there won't be water in the lungs. I think that would have been clear right away. And the posture of law enforcement would have been much different. It would have been a homicide investigation. They called it an accident investigation publicly. So I think we could dispel that part of it. And Billy, I think the fact that we have somebody on that had boots on the ground, that's so important, because now that we've had Verna on tonight and we spoke with her and all the things that she said, it gives me a much clearer picture of what this situation was like and what we're dealing with. The slope, I mean, the video that she showed that shows the major slope, which would mean that the car was kind of thrust into that water. Even if it was just rolling, it would have gone in quicker. And then she just talked about the silt, how it gets kicked up if it's a little windy. The area around not being populated, it's very, very secluded. So if she was blowing the horn or if she was screaming or anything like that, that wouldn't have resulted in somebody coming to rescue or anything like that. So again, having boots on the ground, that's so important with a case like this, that we have somebody tonight. Verna was here and really, really put a whole different perspective on it. And it made it much clearer for me to understand this whole situation.
No, you know something, that's why we learn in homicide that you always need to walk through the crime scene. Take a walk through the crime scene. Take a look at the body. Take a look at the whole room. Take a look at all, because you don't get the feeling, at least as a boss even, get the feeling of what it was like unless you do that. You know, reading the reports doesn't mean anything. Looking at pictures, walk there, see what it looked like, see what it smelled like, see what the room looked like, and that's, I mean, I taught that in college. You got to walk through the crime scene. It's an important thing. So Verna, thank you so much for what you presented tonight, because it was almost like a walk through the crime scene. Iris Hewlett, autopsy was performed, so family must know manner and cause of death, maybe just waiting on toxicology. Iris, I'm sure that their family does know. I think the police know. And you're right, the toxicology will basically get rid of all the questions that people have that are raising these conspiracy theories,
And one other thing, there is on the other side of the party site, it's a hill that goes straight down into some pine trees. I mean, if you were going to cover up an overdose to make it look like a car accident, that would be the easiest and most convenient place to just let a car roll off,
Are you looking to write a mystery novel or something?
No, I'm just saying it's just so steep, and it's right
kidding.
there where she was and everything.
I told you we don't lose our sense of humor, even though we do serious topics. We still.
I would love to.
We still.
But it's just a 16-year-old girl that lost her life from one wrong turn, one little mistake.
Verna, a lot of people that when we were talking about it last night, felt, oh, this couldn't happen. And then I remembered when I was a kid, I was 13 years old. And my brother, who's like 3 years older than me, he went away with this youth group we had. And all of his friends, and the ages of his friends were like 16 to 18. A 16-year-old kid got intoxicated and fell off a cliff and died. It was horrendous. Our whole town was like, the kid was a real popular kid. He was a great athlete. And all of these kids, my brother included, tried to cover it up. Oh, no, there was no drinking. No, there was no marijuana. They were all, drunk as hell from the minute they got there. And like, I didn't know how they thought back then. Like, oh yeah, they're going to take your word for it. They're not going to do an autopsy on him. And some investigators aren't going to investigate this. They're just going to believe you guys. Well, every single one of you guys are lying, you know, because they were trying to protect the chaperone who worked for the youth center, who took them there, who I couldn't believe this guy let 16 to 18-year-olds drink and smoke weed while he was their chaperone. And the result was a 16-year-old kid died. And I just thought of that because how old was Kiely? Was 16, you know. And when people say bad things like that can't happen, no, guess what? They can happen, you know.
They do happen.
And they do happen, yeah.
Can never be too careful. But that age, Billy, you know, naivety, being naive, those kids probably thought they could get over, and they didn't think, like you said, there was going to be an autopsy, and a good investigator is going to get to the bottom of it. And I'm sure that's what happened there. And look, you know, all you got to do is catch them in a little lie, and it leads to the big lie, and then you're able to get to the truth. With this case, I'd just like to say, again, condolences to the family. They lost a 16-year-old young girl. Basically, like Verna said, she just took a wrong turn, probably. That's what seems like it's going to be, something to that effect. And this family's going through a horrible, horrible time. And, you know, we said it right from the beginning that, you know, if you're out 16, 17, 18 years old, whatever it is, you're partying with friends, try to stay together. Don't be alone. Don't make decisions that could wind up be tragic like this. So, again, just condolences to the family.
Verna, I'm going to give you last words. And we ask you, Verna, if you could stick around a little bit once we end the show.
Yeah.
You have any final words?
Just condolence to the family. That's all I could say, is that all I could see was my baby girl, you know. It could happen easily. It's not called an accident for a reason. I know we all want somebody to blame, but sometimes there isn't anybody.
Isn't that the truth? Isn't that the truth? Phil, final words?
Final words. Verna, thank you so much for coming on. Number one, for doing that video. Number two, for giving us the perspective, as I said earlier, boots on the ground. You really enlightened me, and I'm sure Bill as well, and everybody in the audience, all the subscribers, all the listeners. Thank you so much, and we really appreciate it. It's great to have people like you around to do things like you did with the video. And I think probably tonight we dispelled a lot of this rumor and innuendo and conspiracy theories. Thank you again.
You know, Verna, I just want to say again, thank you. Please stay in touch with me. You have my cell, you have my email, Police Off the Cuffs email. Let us know anything that might be of interest in this case, and any future cases that you want to ask us anything or come on the show again. You know, you're welcome.
Does she have a business that she wants to plug?
Yes, Verna, don't you have a business?
I do, but no, it's okay.
You sure you can plug it? It's okay.
I know, but this is all over the country. I'm just in one little area. So.
She's just a little tiny witty bitty business.
Yeah, a little small business.
A small business. Okay.
Folks, thank you. That's so sweet.
Folks, thank you so much for listening tonight. We hope that we brought our perspective to this, and we respect your perspective. Have a great night, everyone, and God bless.
Stay safe, everyone.
Bye.
One episode just ain't enough.